The majority of those living within Western civilization suffer from what was termed in the 19th century as Masonic apoplexy. Today, it is called zombieism. We are surrounded with cognitive dissonance which creates a conflict with the mind and itself, as well as ignorance of the fact. The system wants us to have had enough, taking out our pent-up aggression on each other, and ultimately killing ourselves in the process. You ever wonder how a TV channel can air a news broadcast about exposing an extreme amount of sex and violence in outrage, but then show a movie or program that is full of such extreme themes? It's this hypocrisy that creates a feud within our subconscious. When fighting or arguing with someone, where is your head at? Usually not in a very good place, anxious, angry, hysterical, hurt, and sometimes even apathetic. In my experience, hate is trumped by apathy for being the most evil thing in the world. Many may say that Satan or the devil is the most evil thing in the world. But what exactly is this supposed manifestation of evil known as the devil? The Kabbalistic and true etymological meaning of the word devil or diabol, or dual one, was the double or twin doppelganger of the earliest phases of mythology. Primitive man was made aware of the double at times of crises and has long been associated with ideas of misfortune, disaster, and death. It's our world of duality. Satan is not an existent being. Satan is one side of our dual nature. It is the shadow self that exists within everyone. When you have a problem and can't take responsibility for it, you blame it on your inner demons. It's your scapegoat. We all have good and evil energy that is unbalanced in most people. Once they become balanced, they become one. According to Judeo-Christianity, Adam and Eve were banished from the Garden of Eden as a result of satanic intervention. So doesn't this make the civilization they started ultimately satanic? In the 19th century BC, Babylon became the biggest empire founded by Nimrod, Satan's first attempt at world dominion. The main characteristic of satanic activity is the antagonism against God that has remained in the world through time, all the way back to ancient Egypt, and continues to this day. The city of Rome became the new Babylon as its pagan inhabitants migrated into Europe. Today there is much debate about where the new whore of Babylon resides, but nevertheless it is agreed to be within the US, either Washington, D.C., New York, or Los Angeles, Babylon the Great. In Hermetic Masonic tradition, the secret identity of Satan is the cosmic force represented in occult lore as emanating from the star Sirius, also known as the dog star or Alpha Canis Majoris. In Freemasonry, Sirius is identified with a primary attribute of the bringing of civilization to Earth. In Rosicrucian belief, the city of Utopia was said to be dominated by science and a hyper-analytical obsession with rationalism. Planned in 1668, this Rosicrucian city is today's New York and Los Angeles, two Mecca cities on opposite sides of the US to correlate with the dual nature of Satan and Earth. The star Sirius also has a twin star which revolves around it and can't be seen without a decent telescope. Scientists call it Sirius B. According to primordial tribes around the world, particularly the Dogon tribe in Africa, each has a legend of sky people who came from what we know today as Sirius B, teaching them many things, all major contributors to developing civilization. How could these tribes have known about this invisible star without modern technology? The mythical satanic bringer of civilization to Earth was supposed to be an alien from the Sirius star system, around whom the Egyptians and all subsequent Hermetic systems constructed their elaborate and obsessive religio-astronomic observances. This star was the starting point of creation. The original sinners, Adam and Eve, began the whole journey to Babylon and hell on earth. Modern Adam and Eves are attempting to recreate heaven on earth on the Saturnian model of the Golden Age. Attempts to rebuild it artificially are not only the height of artifice and insanity, but, as H.P. Lovecraft had hinted, indicative of something far more ominous: preparation of the earth for the re-inhabitation by demonic entities once expelled. The terrifying aspect of this comes from what the scientists are actually doing with CERN's Large Hadron Collider. They have even come out and claimed to have made contact with non-human entities that don't take kindly to the human race. With a statue of Shiva, the Hindu goddess of destruction, at the entrance, not to mention a mass ritual secretly filmed around it, their initial claims of recreating the Big Bang is ludicrous. Honestly, who knows what the heck they're doing? Satan, Sirius, God, Lucifer, Jesus, etc. The stories are all the same, non-existent beings written in parables, which in reality are all personified versions of Saturn. It's all about Saturn worship. The satanic rulers use various methods to condition the human mind to subconsciously accept what's to come, including predictive programming and cognitive dissonance. With cognitive dissonance, both light and shadow sides have magnetic attraction for us. Using the question asked in the beginning of this post, the official orthodoxy allows us to indulge our good sense about ourselves as people who can be outraged, but also allows us to indulge in our guilty pleasures. Pleasure, as distinct from joy and happiness, is almost always enhanced by the glamour of the forbidden, and having reassured our persona of our essential goodness by sharing in the condemnations, we can jump headfirst into guilty indulgence of the very themes we had previously agreed were unacceptable when condemned on the news. Our narcissistic rulers are obsessed with duality and using it to induce such cognitive dissonance. Politicians, particularly those of the left, do it all the time, whether we're aware of it or not. They claim to be about equality and egalitarian pipe dreams, yet support false claims such as white privilege to further divide us. Those in support of transgenderism claim the body and external reproductive organs are unimportant, for it's how one feels internally that matters. Yet they contradict this by also supporting the use of hormonal treatments and permanently altering sexual organs surgically. Many unaware people are fascinated with exposés of sex, violence, and Satanism. Fascination is itself a form of mind control if we recognize obsessive treatments of these themes under the guise of exposing them as the very means of inducing interest and involvement in the occult. In other words, those who never hear of such extreme sex and violence are more unlikely to become involved in such things. I am fully aware that presenting this information is in fact doing just that. However, I believe to recognize evil and corruption, one must become aware of it and know what to look for. For example, The Exorcist was released in theaters under the guise of exposing Satanism and the negative consequences of playing with occult tools like Ouija boards. It also brutalized audiences with pornography, graphic violence, and a powerful occult milieu. Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby had the same effect, but was also released as a means of predictive programming. Released in 1968, Polanski's film has been called the best advertisement for Satanism ever made, an allegory to the birth of the demonic eon. Roman Polanski had also been implicated of child molestation and child pornography involving animals. His wife, the gorgeous Sharon Tate, was due to have her baby 2 weeks before she was brutally murdered by the Manson family in 1969. Manson's followers left an extremely graphic scene with Tate's unborn baby literally cut out of her stomach in what looked to be a satanic ritual. Charles Manson was involved in the occult, with his ties and connections to various celebrities and artists of the time. He was also associated with the Process Church of the Final Judgment, a known satanic group within the Los Angeles area. Thanks to the literary propaganda written by Vincent Bugliosi, it is widely and falsely believed that Manson had preached to his followers or family of an event he called Helter Skelter, a coming race war of apocalyptic proportion against the blacks and whites. In his own testimony, what Manson had actually preached was how music was aimed at the youth to rise up against the system and kill, as part of CIA operations to destabilize the left-wing movement and make hippies appear dangerous. Side note: most bands during the 60s counterculture had all come out of the Laurel Canyon region of the Santa Monica Mountains in the Hollywood Hills West District of Los Angeles, where a covert military complex also existed and employed many of the parents of these bands, such as Jim Morrison's father, who was commander of the US warships that allegedly came under attack by North Vietnamese torpedo boats in the Gulf of Tonkin, sparking America's napalm-fueled bloodbath in Vietnam. Manson's testimony also corresponds to what was claimed to be said by Dr. Richard Day in a lecture at a meeting of the Pittsburgh Pediatric Society in March 1969, where among many other disturbing implementations that have occurred, such as messages to be placed within mainstream music subliminally to steer the youth for future agendas. While much was made of the murder of Tate's unborn child, women who pay physicians to kill their unborn and unwanted babies are not regarded as guilty of any heinous acts of Satanism or otherwise. Was the murder of Sharon Tate and her baby a ritual precursor of the coming mass sacrifice of unborn children that soon followed? The very next year, in 1970, Title 10 of the Public Health Services Act became law, which provided public funding for groups like Planned Parenthood, which in New York that same year had legalized abortion, making a Planned Parenthood in Syracuse the first center to offer abortion. Then in 1973, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of abortion rights in all states. Is all this mere coincidence? I think not. Since Planned Parenthood was established in 1916 and founded by the Rothschilds back when America participated in the compulsory mass sterilization known as eugenics. It may seem pretty out there to many, or even too much for some, but the amount of coincidences make it something that should not be shrugged off and ignored. It's a scary thing to realize, but it's that fear that needs to be vanquished if one holds a desire to help do something about it. Remember, courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it.